So when you solve an inequality, most of the time they're going to want you to graph your solution. And the reason they have you do that is so it's easier to tell what your answers are. Okay, so that represents that you know what that symbol means. Okay, when we graph, we have two circles that we use. One's called an open circle, okay, it's just a regular circle, and that represents when you just have a less than or a greater than symbol. The other one is less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, and we do that, we have a solid or a closed circle, depending on who's talking at the moment. They both mean the same thing, okay? So to reiterate this, it says write the endpoint of each graph of an inequality, then explain why the endpoint is or is not a solution of the inequality. Okay, so for this first one, we have a filled in circle, a solid circle, okay, and it's at -5, okay? And since -5 is in a solid circle, it is a solution, okay, because that represents in or equal to. Inequality. Okay, so since that is a solid circle, that means it is a solution. Okay, whereas in this next one, at the number 7 right here, okay, it is not a solution. Okay, because we have an open circle, which means it can only be greater than or less than that number. Okay, it cannot be that number. Okay, so solid is a possible answer, open is not. So what is the graph of inequality? X is greater than -4. Since it's greater than, I need an open circle. So I'm going to put an open circle on -4, so it's -3. Here's -4. Okay, and it wants greater than, and if my answer has to be greater than, that means my arrow is going to move to the right. Because I need my values to be bigger than -4. So if I pick 0, 0 is bigger than -4, and 0 is in my shaded part. So I shaded that correctly, okay? So down here, right, my number is again on an open circle, so that means it has to be greater than or less than. And if I look at this, -4 is less than -3, so X has to be less than -3. It's not or equal to because it's not a filled-in circle. So, a reasoning question. The inequality S is less than or equal to 8 describes a situation where S is a legal speed. Can the speed be all real numbers less than or equal to 8? Okay. So can the speed be all real numbers less than or equal to 8? Okay. Well, if they're describing a speed, okay, the first thing we have to think about is can we actually go negative? Okay, do we drive -10 miles per hour? No. Okay, so all real numbers does include negatives, okay, so that doesn't quite work. Okay, so we could change that statement and that only doesn't work just because of what it's representing. Okay, it describes a legal speed. If it wasn't a word problem, yeah, S could be any real number less than or equal to 8, okay? But since it's a real word problem and it's talking about speed, it cannot be negative numbers. Okay, so no, cannot include negatives because we cannot drive negative miles per Again, that's only true because it was a word problem. This is our less than or equal to symbol, so it could be less than or equal to 8, right? If it wasn't a real life problem. So, your assignment today is page 167, numbers 1, 5, 8 through 11, 13, 17 through 24 all, 29 through 39 all, and then 43 through 57 odd. Okay? You will have all of tomorrow's class period to work on this. Okay, so you don't need to do it for homework right now, but you will have class period tomorrow. Okay? But inequalities, make sure you check which way the arrow is facing and if you have an open or a closed circle.